In 2020, a young Australian filmmaker named Natalie Erika James made her feature film debut as a director with Relic, a psychological horror film grounded in the realities of aging, family dynamics, and dementia. Relic premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and garnered much critical acclaim from all over the world. Audiences, however, have been much more divided, some hailing it as a five-star masterpiece, others dismissing it as one-star crap. Why the sharp difference of opinion? Is it a classic case of critics and serious minded film fans overpraising an unworthy pretender? Or is it a movie so dark and horrifying that some people just can't even go there? Stick around and we'll try to find out.
This is Unworthy Pretender, New York City, zero budget guerrilla filmmaker Sean Weathers.
And I'm Canadian screenwriter and playwright Angus Combe. Watch along with us as we comment on, react to, and review Natalie Erika James' disturbing psychological horror film, Relic. You are watching Screened.
Yeah, we're just commenting on, you see how I pull in your description into the show right there.
Very well done. Very well
It's
done. Yeah,
transitions like that, man. Transitions like that are just brilliant, except if you don't stop to harp on how brilliant they are.
that's true. Yes.
But yeah, like these independent movies, dude, they have like 80 different production companies that bring it together. It's like presented by, in association with, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like by the time you get to like the credits, it's like 20 different production companies trying to get you this movie. You know, maybe they split it up like a dollar each almost. All right, you pay for
Yeah.
this, you pay for that, you pay for this. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It seems to be the reality of making an independent film these days. It just takes so many different companies, so many different people. You have to go to many different sources for money. Yeah, it's really, I don't know. It's not like
I
the
can
old days,
understand going to
maybe.
different sources, like, but is every source a production company? You know?
Well, I don't, no, I don't think so. I think, I'd have to go back and look at all the stuff they listed, but there was something there, Screen
It was
Australia,
almost
which,
2 minutes into the movie of us watching different production companies that put it
yeah,
together before I was like, all right, let's just start the movie here. It's
yeah.
insane, man.
And I suspect some of them were grants or organizations, for independent filmmakers.
But they all had their own like logos and symbols and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah. And like here well, I think, probably all over, but certainly here in Canada, there's a lot of tax credits that you can apply for. And so if you get them, you got to put the logo in. They're very specific about that. It has to be a
Oh, to
certain
get your
size.
get your money
Yeah.
back. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's all kinds of rules about that. But
Oh.
some companies right here where I am in Winnipeg, there's companies who just specialize in what they call service providing. So other companies come in and the local company just kind of does the sort of drudge work, I guess, that needs to be done. Getting the permits, finding the locations, and then they're credited as one of the production companies on the film. So
You know
yeah,
what they say?
yeah,
Anytime something seems complicated, just follow the money.
yeah,
So I should have just followed the money. Makes sense. They need you, like you're saying. I didn't know that, but based on what you're saying, if they need those logos and those icons and stuff to
yeah,
justify or to get either tax write-off or money write-offs, it makes sense then.
yeah, yeah. I've even heard of stories where a film will get into, say, the Cannes Film Festival, and then suddenly a major funder will get in touch with the filmmaker and say, "Hey, we can give you some money to help you get there." And of course, the only reason they want to do it is so they can say, "Hey, we helped fund this movie that went to the Cannes Film Festival." But
Mm.
you know, it's not necessarily a good idea if you can get the money somewhere else. Why let them take credit for that? They're
Mhm.
just jumping on board late.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a way that everyone benefits from this stuff. I don't know if this is like the music industry where they're taking advantage of the artists. I'm sure there's a way that everyone's getting their pockets lined up.
What?
Well, hopefully. I mean, hopefully the artists are.
Okay, what?
Um,
Nothing.
I certainly remember in the old days, you know, people making no budget or low budget films and getting grant money, and then the money would all go to pay the technicians who worked on the film, and the artist would get nothing. They just sort of get their film done, but they don't get paid for all the work. So that always seemed a little bit weird to me.
Well, Stanley Kubrick mentioned that in The Killer's Kiss,
Oh yes,
that he was super nice to the actors because he knew they were getting nothing out of it. Ultimately, it was just a movie that was going to help him with his resume, his experience, and different things like that. Um, and yeah, that was the reason why he was nice to them, because it's like, all right, at the end of the day, you're going to be on the screen, but you're not going to be a star, and this movie isn't
yeah,
really going to make a lot of money, but it's benefiting him in certain ways. I don't think it benefited him in financial ways necessarily, but it benefited his career.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, that's a good attitude, and unfortunately, not everybody took that attitude. A lot of filmmakers and producers sort of take advantage and don't really consider the little people. But that's a
yeah.
whole other area, which
But I obviously I'm a filmmaker as well. Even as we talk about how low budget this is, this is like Avatar compared to what I'm doing as far as productions go. And I'm
yes, that's
honest with
right.
my actors. I'm like, listen, like I'll get you an IMDb credit. You'll be able to see yourself on a DVD or on the video, but that's pretty much it. I don't sell them a bill of goods about this, and that, about you're going to
No,
make X amount of money, or because some people are like, yeah, well, just like let me get a percentage of the movie, and then I'm cool with no money up front. I'm like, A, no, because then you have part ownership in my movie. And then B, it's not what you think it is. A percentage of my movie is just a nuisance to me that I have to be associated with you for the rest of my life because now you have rights in my movie. And then B, it's not going to get you any money. It's like if I make
no,
my money back, I'm golden. And as a filmmaker, when you have a handful of films to your name, actors can make like 5, 6 movies a year. The lower the budget is, the more they can make. They can make like 20 or 30 if you're talking about like on my level.
yeah,
But filmmakers, it doesn't matter what level you are. If you do a movie a year, that's great. 2 or 3, amazing. So there's only so many films you're going to have as a filmmaker. Actors can keep bouncing around. So as a
yeah,
filmmaker, there's a certain amount of value, which I guess is what Kubrick was getting at, of having a film on your title, a film on your resume. For actors, man, you know, you just gotta
yeah,
take what you can get and move on. And speaking of actors, though, I didn't recognize anyone in this movie, just like one, the mother.
yes. Emily
So
Mortimer.
have any of them gone on to do anything since this?
Well, yeah. I would agree that Emily Mortimer, who plays Kay, the mother, uh,
What do I
Patty, the
recognize
mother.
her from? What was her biggest projects?
Oh, well, she's done quite a bit.
She has that
She,
face that she's been in a bunch of stuff.
oh, yes. Well, I remember her being on shows like 30 Rock. I think she played a woman who had bird bones. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but
No, no, I have a life.
um, okay. But I also remember her from a movie I particularly like called
I love this shot right here.
Oh yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Remember when that was a hard shot to get in a movie? Not anyone with a drone can get that shot,
yeah,
or
but kind
anyone
of
with stock
overdone.
footage can get that shot.
Yes, that's true. Well, I remember her from Harry Brown, the movie with Michael Caine, which I quite like. And she's also in stuff like Shutter Island, the Scorsese
Oh,
film.
who was she in Shutter
Uh,
Island? A major character or a bit player?
uh,
What's okay with you taking
Rachel number one. I don't
Oh,
remember the movie well enough to
is
say.
Rachel like one of the wives or something?
No.
Well, I'm not
Rachel.
sure. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie in a long time.
When?
Why don't you go
But
and watch it and come back to me and let me know
yeah,
which character
sure.
she played?
Um, She's also in Our Idiot Brother. I don't know if you remember that one.
No,
Red
you don't have to
Belt.
go over her whole resume. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, she's been on a ton of stuff. And she was on the Newsroom, that TV show, a couple of seasons of the Newsroom. Um, so yeah, you recognize her from tons of things.
Yeah.
She's got like 81 different credits. So yeah, she's the one I think who is sort of internationally recognizable. The other two, I don't particularly know. Robyn Nevin, who plays the
You figure
grandmother.
the daughter would be someone who, I mean, she's of the age that you would think that she would have done something since this, because this was
Yes,
2020, right?
yes, it was. And
What's
yeah,
her biggest project since 2020?
Bella Heathcote is her name, and she is
Not
Australian.
exactly a household name.
No, no,
Bella
I mean I don't know her.
Heathcote.
I don't know her name, and I have seen some things that she's in, but I don't particularly recognize her. She, I mean, this is one of her most recent credits. Since then, she was in something called the Mugai, which is an Australian horror film. And but prior to this, she actually moved to Hollywood or Los Angeles, and she got into some things, some high-profile things, including Dark Shadows, the Tim Burton adaptation
Oh,
of the
she
old
must have been
series.
young when she did that. That's an old movie, right?
That's 2012, yeah. So she was born in
Oh,
87, I think. So she would have been um,
25?
25, yeah, 25.
How old is she?
But
So in this, that means she's 32. Oh, I thought she was younger than 32 in this then.
yeah, well, she looks young. They
Oh,
talk
she looks
about,
like in her mid-20s, honestly.
yeah, yeah, I think they're kind of implying that in a way because her mother says something about going back to university. She
Yeah.
says, I don't know, I'm going to work at this bar. So yeah, I thought she was in her 20s as well.
Mm.
But Dark Shadows, I don't think that was a super big success. It was a big movie, but
Mm. Had a
she
lot
was
of big
also,
names in it, but it didn't really resonate with audiences.
yeah, and she's been in a few other high profile things. I can turn this into a bit of a trivia question for you.
Go for it.
She was in a big budget sequel to a big movie that was based on a hugely successful book or series of books. The original movie came out in 2015 and it made like $589 million at the box office. So it was a huge hit.
I'm sure it's one of
And
those
her,
young adult things like Maze Runner or Hunger Games or one of those type things, right?
well, yeah,
No?
sort of, not quite though. It's a little more adult perhaps and its
Oh,
nature. Her movie came out in 2017 and it was a success. It only made 381 million though, so not as big as the first movie.
and this was
And
a
the book
sequel to a movie,
sequel,
2015, 500 something million. Was
yes,
that 500 something million domestic or worldwide?
worldwide, worldwide.
All right, so not that much of a big hit. And the sequel was 2017. It's not young
Yes.
adult, it's just adult. Was it horror?
I wouldn't say it's horror, no.
Not horror, not young adult, but adult movie.
You
Huh.
hear you definitely heard about these books and these movies a lot, and there's a lot of spoofs of them.
Hmm. It's not the Twilight stuff. That's too late for Twilight.
Yeah, no,
It's
it feels similar to that in a way, but it's different, and I think it's aimed more at adults.
oh, are you talking about those sex movies, right?
Yes, yes, they are
Um,
erotic or
what the
whatever they
hell is the
are.
name of the series of books? Because the person that wrote it was a Twilight fan too.
Yeah,
It was that S&M stuff. What
that's
the
right. Yes,
fuck was the name of it? Dakota Fanning was not Dakota Fanning,
yes.
Dakota Johnson
Uh,
was in it.
oh,
Uh, damn it. How do I remember the star of the movie, but not the name of the movie? Um, Shades, 50 Shades of Grey.
yeah, that was the
50 Shades of
original.
Grey.
50
So the
Shades of Grey.
sequel, she was in the sequel?
She's in the second one in the series,
Oh,
yes. Um,
wow. She's bootleg Dakota Johnson. That's what I'm gonna call it for the rest of this, Bootleg Dakota Johnson. 51 Shades of Grey. I don't know what the hell the sequel would be.
No. Well, I'll just tell you, it's called 50 Shades Darker. 50
Oh,
Shades Darker. But you're
wouldn't that be
right,
like
though.
50 Shades Black or something?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Hmm.
So it looks like Dakota Johnson is still in it.
Oh,
She plays a different character, Lila Williams, one of
she's in
Christian's.
it but plays a different character.
Well, she's not playing the Dakota Johnson character. Sorry, it's Dakota Johnson. I assume is the same character, but Bella
Oh,
Heathcote is in the movie as a different character.
that would have been
What?
interesting. You have the same
Yeah,
actor playing a different part in the
yeah, yeah.
sequel.
Well, yes, that would be, yeah. So yeah, so that's an example of a big movie she was in, but of
You know
course
what
I
her
know
problem
nothing.
is? She is too similar to a lot of like these young blondes in horror movies. Because
Yeah,
you could put her in the category with the girl from It Follows.
yes,
That blonde, you could put her in the category of the blonde from um oh, what's that wedding one? Where at her wedding she killed her family. Oh fuck.
oh,
Um
oh,
You know that horror movie where there was some ritual at the wedding, and in the wedding, the poster is her in the wedding dress with guns and blood all over her face? She was
mm,
in the second to last Scream movie as well.
okay.
It's hot blonde. What the hell was the name of that movie? Ready or Not?
Ready or not?
Yeah, I think that was it. Do you find that on IMDb?
Yeah. Ready or Not 2019.
Yeah, a year
Uh,
before this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Samara Weaving.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
Samara Weaving was in multiple horror movies, Ready or Not, the second to last Scream movie, the girl from It Follows. She was in a like a Rear Window type horror movie a couple of years ago that I saw that was pretty good.
Oh
Um,
yes.
where it was like some stalker type stuff. And
So It Follows. Is that Mecca Monroe or
yes, she was in The
Mecca
Guest,
Mecca?
which was kind of a horror movie. She
Oh
was in It
yes. Yeah.
Follows, and then she was in some other recent like A24 like remake or inspired by Rear Window type horror movie. You had the
Yeah.
girl that was in oh, she was in another movie where she had like an axe on the poster, and then there was another thing where the family was trying to kill her. I
Oh
think it was
yes.
maybe like a Ty West movie or something.
Oh
Um,
yes.
yeah. But anyway, my
Not
point
one.
is
Yeah.
there's like a million of these girls where it's like they're a little older than you think. It's like, oh, she's
Yeah.
in her 30s or late 20s, blonde, kind of cute, kind of has a good face in a bunch of different horror movies. And just like how I'm trying to remember the names of these girls in the movies, I think everybody else is that way. That's why they don't really stand out, you know? It's
Yeah.
difficult. It's a crowded field, you know? Because there
Yeah.
was even another one that was in the that comedy horror movie where it was like Groundhog Day.
Oh,
Happy Death Day.
Happy Death Day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another blonde that's deceptively older than you think. She's in her 30s, and there's just a million of them, you know? So it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to stand out.
Jessica Roth or Roth or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. See, I don't really know any of these to be honest. I've seen some of the movies,
Aren't
but
you a horror movie guy though?
I am, but I guess these are a little too recent. You know, I
These are
mostly
all decent
see,
movies. They're all pretty good. They're not great, but they're all
yeah,
good movies.
yeah. But yeah, like I said, I've seen some of them, but I just don't, somehow I don't remember, you know.
And you're the one that
Um,
wanted to focus on horror movies. You made me download like a
well,
hundred horror movies.
not these ones, not these ones, you know.
You made me download like a
You
hundred
know,
horror movies. You're like, yeah, we should focus on horror. Where'd you tell me? Horror is more of our thing. Like horror is
yes,
kind
well,
of like where our expertise is at. You don't know
It
any of
is,
these
yeah.
movies.
Well, these are all within the last 5 years. That's the problem. I always like to say I don't see movies until they're about 12 years old. But, I mean, I had not even heard of this one until you suggested it from 2020. So,
You're the
but
pedophile of horror movies. You're like, no, I like them 12.
12 years old. Yeah, horror movies. Um, yeah, so Robyn Nevin, she's the older actress, plays the grandmother. She's Australian, and I think she's mainly known in Australia. I suspect she's really well known in Australia. She's done a lot of theater and a lot of Australian film and TV. I don't really recognize a lot. I mean, she was in a couple of the Matrix films, apparently, but I think probably just in small roles because did they shoot those in Australia? I'm just guessing. Um, but most of her stuff I'm not familiar with. But clearly a good actress with a long career.
Mhm.
But back to the one we were talking about, the young woman. Um, she, Bella Heathcote. I can give you another trivia question
Okay.
since we did so well with 50 Shades of Grey. She's in another big budget movie, mainstream movie. It was a literary mashup of sort of a classic novel meets horror movie. It's based on a novel, but that novel is
By
actually based
by
based on
Bush,
an older
by
novel.
Sapphire.
No,
It's a
not by
novel by
Sapphire.
Sapphire.
No, no. It's based on a novel that was kind of based on an older classic famous novel, and it's kind of twisted and
Little
turned into
Women?
something new. No, not Little Women, but you're not far off in a way. Um, so yeah, it was this big deal for a while. The book was everywhere, and they made this movie out of it. And I think the movie was a bit of a bomb. I don't think it did well, but it's a famous book and a famous movie nonetheless.
One sugar.
Shall I give you more clues?
It was an older book that was remade, and
Well, there's an older classic novel
No,
that
it was
a new
Victorian era then? Is that what you mean?
as far as
yeah, and it was kind of taken by a modern writer and kind of rewritten and changed and kind of
Mm.
a mashup with horror.
Yeah, I don't want to.
So
I
they
think
took
I know
this,
what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah,
And it was like, yeah, girl power type thing, you know?
it could be,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The name is slipping me.
yeah.
Um, what the fuck?
I can,
It's
this,
something and something it's called.
yes,
Fuck. It's something and something. Oh, it's
yes.
right there. Oh.
Well, this won't help you, but I'll tell you the guy who wrote the new book is named Seth Graham Smith, but that means nothing to me, so that probably won't mean anything to
It
you.
means nothing to
But
me either. He's
but
just confusing me more.
there's a much more famous writer who wrote the original book. I can tell you who that is if you want another clue.
No, I don't need another clue. It's I know what you're talking about. It's just a matter of if I
Yes.
can remember it or not.
Do you know how
Something
Yeah.
and something, and it's Victorian era with these fancy dresses, and then the girl has a shotgun in the poster or something. I know exactly what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
It's not terms of endearment. That's not it. It's something and something it's called. It's not crime and punishment, terms of endearment. The title is something like that though. It's not any of that stuff.
Yeah. I would go so far as to give you the hint that it's actually something and something and something. So there's actually two
The
ands.
third thing is what makes it the modern horror movie type thing.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get the title, but I know
No.
exactly what you're talking about. It's something with vampires or werewolves or something they fight or something weird. But go ahead, what is
Yes. It was Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
it? Yeah.
So based on the original Jane Austen novel. And the book was a huge smash. And it spawned a whole bunch of imitators, which had very similar titles. based on an old classic. And yeah, werewolves, other monsters, vampires.
Around that
Yeah,
time, they
so
had a lot of those type of movies where Abraham Lincoln versus vampires, and
that's right.
they had a
Yes.
bunch of
Yeah.
those mashup type movies around that period of time.
Yes.
So you're saying the blonde from this was in that one?
She was in that. She didn't actually play the main character. She played her sister. So she was one of the sort of main characters, but not quite the main character. So maybe that kind of defines who she is. She's somebody who's kind of had a bit of a successful career, but she hasn't quite become a star.
Yeah. This scene here is shot kind of in a Roman Polanski type way, where
Yes.
they really pull out and they try to intrigue you as to what's going on. Like, all right, I got to lean to the side to see this character, and I'm seeing
That's
it
right.
through a distorted way, and making you fight to see what's going on, trying to hold your attention more, make a normal talking scene seem more intriguing. So I did like
Yes.
that shot composition of that
Yes.
scene.
Yes, indeed. Um, I suppose I need to admit that this movie, I had no idea what I was getting into. I just thought, oh, it's a recent horror movie. It's supposed to be really good. Yeah, this will be awesome, and I really didn't know anything about it. And so I started watching it, and it hit a lot.
You know what? After I watched it, I didn't know anything about it. It's a weird movie. You're saying that before you watched it. I'm saying that after
Yes.
I watched it, but go ahead.
Yes. Well, so it actually wound up hitting a lot closer to home for me than I expected or would have liked in a way because
You had that
because it
older friend
really
you talked about?
She was worried about you.
well, yeah, but also my mother who you know
Oh, yeah.
it's very I know exactly where this is coming from because I mean it's all about the mother or the grandmother and how she is having some kind of mental health issues, and it could be something like Alzheimer's, it could be dementia, it could be something else, um, but my own mother during the last couple of years of her life was having some similar issues, and it's I can see why you would want to turn that into a horror film because it is at times almost like a horror film, and it can be very disturbing. And yeah, I mean, I found myself as I was sort of dealing with my mother's health issues, that I imagined, yeah, this could make a good movie or something, like there's a lot of things that happen, and it's like, yeah, this could make a good horror film. And so I found myself thinking that that's got to be where this is coming from for this filmmaker. And I did confirm it later, did a bit of research, and she's been interviewed a couple of times, and it was, I think it was based on her grandmother who had Alzheimer's and some of the experiences she had with that, which inspired her to do this. So it's, yeah, I don't know. It's, I think they do a very good job of sort of capturing what that is like, living with an aging parent or an aging grandparent who is having these kind of issues, and all the weird things that can happen, and the disturbing things that they can say and do. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I found it. I mean, in some ways, it's good and it's bad because I kind of appreciated that it was really well done, but at the same time, it's kind of difficult, it's difficult material. It's not exactly fun, particularly for somebody who's gone through that, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that emotional connection to the material like you do. But I could tell while watching this is one of those, I guess there were a few movies that came out around this time. I'm not sure the release date, but it's, kind of one of those kind of modern horror movies where the horror is based on trauma and it's based on real emotions personified with horror. And
Yeah.
it's really not about the horror you're seeing on screen. It's the
isn't that how it
emotions that the characters are
works? If you're
feeling.
next, then you change this.
Kind of like some more better executed versions of this would be like the Babadook,
Yeah.
where it's about the Babadook monster, but it's about this woman who just has a kid that she doesn't want and can't deal with, and coming to
Yeah.
grips with that, with an absent father.
Yeah.
And then you have like Heredity, which is kind of like that as well, where you're just
Yes.
dealing with those type of things, and it's personified with these, slow burn psychological horrors. And
Yes.
like you said, I mean, I didn't read up on this movie either before or after we watched it. Because you do the research, I'd rather have a different perspective and go into it blind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the idea that this is based on Alzheimer's, it's kind of really spot on, because you literally have in certain parts of the movie where she's burying memories. She's burying like
Yes.
a photo book and eating photos, which
Yes.
is, it's odd, but yeah, it plays into the whole memory thing where it's just like, so it makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't put this on the level of those other movies I mentioned.
Yeah.
Babadook I thought was great, and Heredity I thought was great as well. This is decent, but
Yeah.
it has something to say. I'll give it that. It's not like a commercial movie just trying to have a bunch of jump scares.
Yeah.
Are you all right?
Yeah. No, definitely not. It's much more
You're leaving.
about the characters and the situation, and it is a slow burn, as people like to say. They take their time, and I think I probably liked the first half hour probably the best, where it was just kind of getting to know the situation. And
Are
as
you
we
all
get
right?
deeper into it, I'm not sure if it quite pays off as much as you kind of hope it will. But there definitely are a lot of good moments that are kind of unnerving and disturbing. Um, Not sure about the ending. I mean, I feel like I got it, but and when we get there, we can look at it and see what we think. But yeah, I don't know. It's I did like it, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it as a fun horror film.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I think the where it what it lacks at those other movies
No, there's
where
nothing.
it was able to succeed with is, it's one thing to say, hey,
Are
like
you sure?
underneath the surface, there's something else going on, which literally it ends that way, where it's literally
yeah,
underneath the surface, something else is going on. But you
yes,
gotta you gotta find a way to incorporate the horror and your themes, your underlying themes better, where it's just like,
yeah,
yeah, I can look at this as a horror movie, and then I can look at this as some psychological movie as well. And
yeah,
I can look at them too. I cannot understand that this is about your personal trauma or Alzheimer's or anything like that, and still enjoy it as a horror movie, which you
yeah.
can with movies like Heredity and what was the other one I mentioned? The
The
Babadook.
Babadook.
Like, you don't
Yeah,
have to know like the underneath the surface stuff to enjoy those movies. With this
yeah,
one, when you just look at it at the horror elements, it doesn't really come together, and it kind of ends underwhelmingly. And I think
yeah,
that's where this doesn't work for me as much as those other ones work for me.
yeah. And this moment here too is interesting because the mother or grandmother says, there's something under my bed, and so the mother or the daughter, depending on your perspective, looks under the bed, and she seems to see something under there. She seems to see something breathing. That's what it
And
looks
then we
like to
cut
me.
to the
Like,
next scene.
yeah,
What the
and then
fuck?
she kind of she gets startled and she bumps her head, and then she's just like, "Well, I'm done here," And it's like, if I looked under the bed and saw something breathing under there, I'd be like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I think I better get a flashlight or something," Like, but yeah, it's like she just kind of puts that out of her mind, and maybe it's meant to be somehow symbolic or something. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
it's trying to be too artsy. It's like, all right,
yeah,
you gotta mix your art and your straightforward horror movie a little bit better.
yeah,
This
yeah,
isn't like a short movie where it's like it doesn't have to make sense. It's just like some artistic short movie. And it's a
yeah,
full-length feature horror movie. You gotta have some kind of logic and some kind of, through line that's pulling you to the end that pays off in some form or fashion. And this doesn't really do that extremely well.
Yeah, not as much as I had hoped. Like I said, I was quite enjoying it in the front end, and then it kind of doesn't quite gel at the end. Although in a way it does, but it's just not exciting or something.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think the movie gets any worse as you go along, but I think that you're more forgiving at the beginning of a movie with the
Yeah.
anticipation of the hopes that, all right, like these elements are going to lead somewhere. I
Yes.
think, I don't think like the second half is any drop off from the first half. I just feel like there's nothing that's pulling it together in an interesting or compelling way as to make me think, all right, oh, like there's no ramp up or anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And again, sort of going back to my own experiences with my mother, she was experiencing hallucinations and delusions, and believed there were all kinds of things going on. And I remember my brother's wife at one point, she said, well, there's one other possibility here that
What does
nobody's
Doris Wishman
considered.
have to do with this?
Doris Wishman.
Why are you bringing up my
Oh,
brother's
yes.
wife?
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Now it's just getting too complicated.
It is, it
Um,
is. Let's
uh,
just take a deep breath and reset.
how can I say this in a way that won't draw on Doris Wishman? I want to say sister-in-law, but that might be just as bad because I think there's a lot of movies called sister-in-law as well. But
A lot
maybe
of
I'll
porn
just
movies, maybe.
maybe I'll just say the woman who is married to my brother. She was responding to all the various things that were happening, my mother's delusions and hallucinations and all these stories, uh, which sounded like something out of a horror film in a way. And she said, well, the one possibility that we haven't considered is that maybe everything she's saying is true. And she was kind of joking, but it was, as a horror fan, I think she was recognizing that is in itself a horror story, right? Somebody's insisting that there's some kind of evil in the house, and you think, oh no, that's just this person, they're having a problem, they've got dementia or something. But maybe it's real, though. Maybe it's actually a monster or evil spirit or something. And so it seems to me that that's the way this movie's kind of operating on that. Is it just in her head? Is it just her, whatever it is, dementia, Alzheimer's? Or is there actually an evil presence in this house? Is there something actually going on? So yeah, it feels like the kind of movie where you're going to figure out over time, is it real? Is it not real? Um, I'm not sure if we actually do figure that out in this movie.
The ending is very underwhelming. Um, it's like I understand you want to be ambiguous, you want to be artistic, but you also want to tell a decent story, you know? And
Yeah.
I feel that it put the story on the back burner for the themes that it wanted to explore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I wanted more for this movie because I like movies that try to achieve something instead of just following tropes and then and going with the jump scares and just trying to be like a quick buck type Blumhouse movie. It's just like, all right, let's just
Yeah.
churn these out like a factory. It's like McDonald's.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to give the mom and pop shop a chance instead of going to the franchise, but
Yeah.
sometimes the franchise you want that consistency because at least you know what you're gonna get. But
Yeah.
this is just like you feel you invested time into nothing ultimately because I just don't know what the point was.
Yeah.
It just feel like an ambiguous movie just to be ambiguous at the end.
Yeah. Well, the point might be very, very simple, which is just that, yeah, it's kind of horrifying when you're dealing with an aging parent and it almost is like a monster or a evil force or something. But at the end, you kind of have to recognize that no, no, this is my parent. This is a human being. It's not a monster, and you just have to kind of come to terms with that and face that as best you can.
Mhm.
It might be that is roughly.
But as a filmmaker, the challenge is to bring that into a narrative structure. And then if anyone wants to interpret it that way, they can look beneath the surface. Your your s- your subtext
Mhm.
shouldn't be the plot. Your subtext should be like the story you're trying to tell, and your plot
Yeah,
should be the text. Here, they just switch the subtext and the text. Here, the
yeah,
text is the themes that they're trying to explore, and the subtext is the plot.
Those
But
books
you
yeah,
got to reverse that, you know?
You're throwing these out?
yeah.
I didn't even know you kept them.
Well, this is kind of reminding me of
Well, I have to make
when
my
Joe
mind
Bob
up
Briggs got
now.
himself in trouble commenting on
Food for what,
uh,
Mummy?
one of the remakes
One's moving
of
in.
uh, Black Christmas, I guess it was. And
No
he had
dessert.
seen the director on some show talking about the meaning of it or the
Sure
point
way.
of it or
It's your
something.
decision.
And he had responded basically saying,
How was Melbourne?
you know what I liked about the horror filmmakers in the 70s and 80s? They didn't have a point. They would just say, "Hey, look at this really cool movie" or whatever.
Mhm.
And don't tell me how to experience your movie. Don't tell me the point. Don't, something to that effect. And people jumped on him and they attacked him and they said he was trying to keep down female filmmakers and all kinds of ridiculous things. But people wound up really hating that movie when it came out. So, like that was the twist. Is like everybody thought that movie was terrible, but I think the point is kind of related in a way to what you're saying that you may have a point, and I think a lot of those filmmakers in the 70s and 80s had a point in mind, but they didn't make it the center. They just said, here's a cool movie about a killer that's killing people or a monster or zombies or whatever, and you kind of focus on that. And then if there happens to be a point underneath that you might get, great,
I don't
you
know
know.
what to suggest.
But to kind of put it at the front and say this is
Is that why
what
it's
my
supposed
movie's
to?
about, and it kind of
I thought
becomes
this
like
was where it got in.
eating
Well, it
granola
becomes
or something.
pretentious when the subtext is at the forefront. Then
Whoever it
you're
Yeah,
is,
this pretentious filmmaker. Oh well, it's a horror movie, but it's not about horror. You know, it's like, no, make a horror movie and then let the geniuses figure out, oh, well, this is what he meant by this. You shouldn't be at the forefront saying, this is what I meant by this, you know. And if you don't
yeah,
get it, you know, whatever.
Sounds
I'm not
yeah,
saying that this filmmaker is pretentious in any way. I don't know anything about her. But I'm just saying this style of making movies is why you're going to get a polarizing movie, you know? Doesn't mean you're
yeah,
a bad filmmaker, you're a bad person, doesn't mean you're pretentious, it doesn't mean any of those things. But
yeah,
when you execute something like this,
I'm glad you
that's
like those
why
things.
I think you mentioned it's a polarizing movie because you're going
yes,
to get the people that say, oh, I get what they're doing here. And this is so much better than jump scares, blah, blah, blah. But then you're gonna get the people who are like, all right, like I just wanted to enjoy a movie. Like this movie isn't
hmm,
enjoyable, and I don't want to hear I didn't enjoy it because I didn't get it. I just didn't
yeah,
enjoy it, you know?
yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think definitely you're going to have the people who are looking for a Blumhouse movie, hoping for those kind of scares, and they're going to go, "What the hell is this? This is boring. Nothing's happening." And then
Mhm.
you're going to get people who may have experienced this kind of thing in their own lives and are going to get it and are going to feel something. And some of those people are going to love it and going to say, this is brilliant. They've really captured it. And other people are like, I don't want to experience this. I've already done that. This has given me traumatic flashbacks. This is triggering me. So they're maybe not going to like it for that reason as well. But,
But you also have
I
the
would say,
toxic people too. The people are
yeah,
gonna be like, oh, you don't get it because you're an idiot. Like you're just looking
yes,
for a Blumhouse movie. But
yeah,
then I'm not looking for a Blumhouse movie.
no,
I just want a movie that I can enjoy that pays off. You know, I just want a payoff. If I'm going to invest
yeah,
90 minutes of my time, like, all right, like make me feel like I invested in something worthwhile. not something that makes as much sense in the first 5 minutes that it makes in the last 5 minutes, then what was that journey for? If I'm
Yeah,
just as perplexed at the end of
yeah,
the 90 minutes as I was at the beginning of the 90 minutes, then why did you take me on this useless journey? It's like, hey, let's go to this party, and like we start walking. It's like we're not, it's been 90 minutes. Like, where's this party? Oh, dude, you just don't get it, man. You just don't get it. I'm going home,
yeah,
man. I thought you were
yes,
cool, man. It's like, no, like I was promised a party and I don't have a party and the night's over.
yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah. Well, this kind of, we're talking around this a little bit here, and this kind of brings up the idea of what people have been calling elevated horror. Um, I don't know if you have feelings about that term, elevated horror,
Mhm.
but
It's not a trigger thing for me. I'm fine with the term.
yeah. I mean, it's something that people have started talking about in recent years and talking about it as if it's a new thing, as if in the past horror films were, you know, crap or B movies or whatever. And now there's elevated horror movies that are, giving us something more. And they would include a movie like this and say this is part of that kind of elevated horror. Um, but the truth is that I think that there's always been movies that fit into that category. We didn't use the term elevated, but movies like The Exorcist and The Shining, are certainly movies that are about deeper psychological things. They're not just about a monster or you know whatever,
We
a
don't even have to
killer.
go that far back. I mean, like I said, I mean,
Yeah,
the Babadook and
yeah,
Heredity, they're considered elevated horror, I would think, and they're
oh
great
yes, yeah,
movies.
absolutely, yeah,
I think the worst example of elevated horror that I've seen, and I didn't mind this movie because it was so visually interesting, but this movie was doomed from the title, Gretel and Hansel.
Okay.
oh
So it's like,
I,
you're like, no, we're gonna put the woman's name first. It's just like you're already pissing people off because you're trying to make some kind of statement instead of saying Hansel and Gretel, Gretel and
yeah,
Hansel. And it's just this pointless movie. I loved it because of the visuals, because I'm a visual guy. I mean, I
yeah,
thought it was an interesting movie to look at, but it was just a completely weird and pointless movie for the sake of being weird and pointless, I think. And
oh
I
yeah,
think that's the worst of the elevated horror movies,
Mom?
because that movie was just dead on arrival. From the
oh yeah,
title, it pissed people off. You want to
wow,
put people in a position where they don't even want to give your movie a chance. Just do a
yeah,
press tour talking about why it should be called Gretel and Hansel. You don't even get to a point where you can talk about your movie because you're just stuck on like defending your title.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know,
Have you seen or heard of that movie at all?
no, well, I may have heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Everything all right in there, Mum?
I mean, these type of movies can work. Like a Terrence Malick, for instance, makes super artistic movies and weird movies,
Yeah,
but he doesn't make genre movies. When you make genre movies, it's not just that you're doing an artistic movie, but you're doing it a in a I want to say in a genre, but then that's being redundant. You're doing it in a space where people have certain expectations. Genre
yes,
movies, you're going there for like the thrills and the certain beats that you expect. And when
yes,
you do a genre movie and you're trying to do it artistically, you still have to give people what they expect. And we talked about this a lot. A lot of enjoying a movie or not enjoying a movie is the expectations that are set going into it. If you want to
yeah,
be artistic, be a Terrence Malick. Just do this movie where it's going to have a weird trailer and you know you're going to be in for something weird to make you see Terrence Malick's name. And and there you go. You're off and running, and you know what you're getting when you watch a Terrence Malick movie. But Terrence Malick isn't going to make a horror movie that's going to be edited with like a horror trailer, and you're going to be expecting all these jump scares, and then you get a fucking Terrence Malick movie where it's just like 10 minutes of staring into the sun, followed by like a dinosaur stepping on someone's head, and people walking on the beach in suits. Like I don't
yeah,
know. So
yeah. Well, that's a good point, and I know I talked about this when we covered slasher films, but I read a good book about slasher films, and they made this interesting point that it's the one genre that people, before they even start watching the movie, they know exactly what's going to happen in this movie. They know everything that's going to happen in this movie, and they like it that way, you know. And in fact, they get angry when movies try to do something clever and deviate from that. You know, they don't want to be tricked. They just want to see a slasher film. You know, they want characters to get killed one by one. They want a final girl to fight at the end and maybe defeat the killer. Um, that's what they want. They don't want surprises.
Mhm.
So,
But
yeah,
you mentioned some older movies that could be considered elevated horror, The Shining and The Exorcist, which are two of my favorite
yes,
horror movies.
yes,
What is so subversive about those movies? They follow the same structure of horror movies, you know? It's not like Jack Nicholson lives at the end, or, oh, it turns out that Jack Nicholson was the hero all along. No, the son and the mother escape and Jack Nicholson dies, you know?
yeah,
The Exorcist, you know, the girl gets exorcised and she's fine. There's no twist, or it's like, oh my God, like, you know, the girl was really an angel and everyone else were devils. It's not like any kind of weird odd twist or like a non-resolution ending where it's like she never gets exercised, you know, or like I don't know, like
yeah,
those movies follow conventional. They have a beginning, middle, end, but there's clearly like a lot there, you know. These are movies that
yeah,
resonate with people decades later. So you can do these type of things and still execute it properly. But
yes,
I don't know. Like it's making it sound like I really don't like this movie, which is not the case. I'm just more disappointed in this movie, and that I felt it was like a little bit of a waste of a time because, again, you're following this movie where this woman is clearly lost her mind or losing her mind, and they're making you think, okay, like there's something behind it. There's something like keep watching, like there's a
yeah,
mystery that's going to be untold, but there is no mystery.
no. Yeah, well, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at, is that you expect that, oh, there's a big reveal, you know, that, oh, yes, it is an evil spirit, or it's a demon, or it's a monster, or whatever, and that maybe you can defeat it in the end, or, you know, but no, they just kind of go with the more realistic kind of, this is what it is, you know,
Then make a
it's a,
drama.
yeah. And I think in terms of elevated horror, I think, you know, they talk about things like having more psychological elements, deeper character study, not just a bunch of victims who are there to get killed one by one. Like it's more of a serious drama in a way. There's more human drama in it. So it doesn't need to like break all the rules. I don't think it needs to have you know, a really transgressive sort of twist in the end or anything like that. I think it just needs to be deep and serious. You know, people need to kind of see it as, this is a serious movie, not just a cheap kind of jump scare kind of movie.
Mhm.
I think.
And here we have this deep scene where she's eating her memories,
Yeah. Yes.
and now she's about to bury them deep
Yes.
in the I don't know, the what is that called? What is that like where is
The
she right
Earth.
now? No, not the earth.
The
Don't be a dick.
the outback,
Forest, I guess.
the forest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Remember the Seinfeld episode where they didn't know where they were. They were in California looking for Kramer. And then George
yes.
stops somebody. Hey, where are we? Earth. You know, we're living in a society. I want
Yeah.
to tell that to you, Angus. We're living in a society, Angus. You don't have to
Oh,
be a dick.
jeez. Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. Um,
And here she is literally burying her
yeah.
memories.
So the question is she trying to preserve them? Is she trying to save them, protect them? Or is this showing us that she's losing them? Which is it?
Stop trying to be pretentious, Angus.
I'm not trying. I just am.
What does this scene
Uh,
tell us about the mind and how it works and how these characters interact with each other? You know, it's like, come on, man.
Is this more of a Freudian kind of interpretation, or is this kind of a Skinnerian behaviorist approach? Which is this?
But and again, it's not a bad movie. It's well acted, it's well shot. It has good intentions, and I don't hate it. It's just if we're going to be
Oh,
analyzing it and talking about it, it's hard to get past the fact that it goes nowhere. Because if we
yeah,
focus on these elements, then when we get to the last 10 minutes of the movie, it's just going to be like, yeah, like, and then it went nowhere. It's
yeah,
like we've already seen it before. We know it goes nowhere. So it's hard to get past the fact that we know that this stuff doesn't lead to anything. And it's not like art, like at the end of the movie, they solve Alzheimer's and this is how you
yeah,
handle it and this is the cure. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could be like, well, this is how you cope, you
yeah,
know? This is how you get by on a day-to-day basis and deal with something like that. It doesn't have to be like
yeah,
this grand happy ending, but
yeah,
um say something about it. Don't just vent about it.
yeah. Well, I think it's just so simple and quiet in its conclusion. You know, it's just sort of acceptance, I guess. This is kind of what it is. Just accepting this.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously there's a dark underbelly of it, and she's like, as scary as this is, I'm not gonna leave my mother, blah blah blah, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but still, I mean, it's a movie, man.
yeah.
Give me something to, I don't know,
Now
make me feel
this
I didn't
part
waste my time.
this part that we're about to embark on here, I think is one of the better sequences in a way.
This is where
And
I
I know,
thought the movie was gonna show us what it was like. It was gonna lead to
yeah,
something. I was like, all right,
exactly.
now we're gonna unsolve the mystery. Like, I was
Yes,
like, all right, cool.
we're going deep into the underground here. But this is, to me, this is a very familiar, I guess you could say, trope of the haunted house movie, which we talked about in another podcast. But you know, a lot of really great haunted house movies involve what I would describe as a hidden room or hidden space in the house. The character kind of figures out that there's something there. They might have to break through a wall or, you know, to get to this thing. But this is what this reminds me of. You know, she's going into what should be a simple closet, but it winds up opening up into more and more and more, and it becomes a maze. And I found that really kind of interesting and kind of disturbing. And whether it's real or whether it's sort of some kind of a psychological mind trick that's happening to her, I wasn't sure, and I was, you know, wondering where it's going to go, what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know whether it really goes anywhere. It just kind of ends in a way, like she just kind of
Are we talking about
breaks.
this scene or the entire movie?
This scene, this sequence, it goes on for quite a while. This sequence.
Again, are you sure you're not talking about the entire movie?
Well, no, I think this almost goes for the rest of the movie in a way. This sequence here.
I don't know. Your
We,
description kind of threw me off. It just
yeah,
kind of goes
it
on for a
goes.
while, then it goes nowhere.
Yeah,
I thought you were
yes.
describing the whole movie. Sorry.
Well, I may have been inadvertently, but no, I think, and of course, the stuff with all the little post-it notes, I do like that because
It
certainly
almost has like
something.
a John Malkovich type of a sense where you're almost inside the grandmother's mind, you know,
Yes,
where she's
yes.
trying hard to remember all these different things. There are elements there that work. Again, it's
Hmm.
shot well, there are elements that work. It just doesn't go anywhere. Um,
Yeah,
you ever saw the movie Mother?
mother. Who was in that one?
Um, Another blonde, uh, Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. Is it like 2017 or
Yeah,
so?
it was kind of like
Or
a pseudo horror movie, and
yeah, I
it
don't
was
think I
really,
saw it.
yeah. The filmmaker, he's a
No,
really
I
good
didn't.
filmmaker.
Oh
He
yeah,
did
Darren.
Pi and a bunch of
Yeah,
other good
Darren
movies. Darren
Aronofsky.
Aronofsky, yeah.
Yeah,
I think, yeah. So
I should see
Another
it.
like super artsy, weird horror movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the reason I brought up Mother is the um the producers or the studio or whoever was responsible for the marketing of it marketed it as a horror movie, but it was
Oh yeah.
like it was just nothing like a horror movie. It was just completely this weird artistic thing that had a few horror elements to it, but it was just a
Uh-huh.
complete art house movie.
Yeah.
That just literally was just a bunch of metaphors thrown together about religion and the Bible and Adam and Eve and the first woman and just a bunch of weird shit. And it just had a few horror elements. The reason I bring this up is I wonder how this was marketed and advertised. Was it pitched as a horror movie, or was it pitched as like this psychological, I don't know, drama or something?
Yeah, that's a good
Because again, if you
question.
pitch this as a horror movie, that's what's gonna piss people off. It's just like, all right, like, is this what I really, signed up for?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, now apparently, director, uh, she actually went to film school, I think, and
No kidding.
when she when she
You tell
graduated,
me, you
she
tell me someone who made a pretentious movie went to film school. That's how
yeah,
shocking.
yeah,
How
yes.
shocking.
But apparently, when she graduated, I guess she made a short film
Well, there's stuff
um,
still here.
as her student project, and some producers actually saw it and reached out to her. She was only 21, and they were kind of interested in her, and she didn't really have anything for them. She wasn't really prepared, so it took a few years for her to really
Mom.
come up with this idea, and I think
Obviously, a very
that's
personal film as well.
yeah, yeah. And she did make a short film called Creswick, which was actually an early version of this, or a pre sort of a proof of concept kind of for this. Although it's about a father and a daughter, so it's a little bit different
Mhm.
and much more simple. And of course, it's a short film, so it's very easy to take. It doesn't need a whole lot of meat on its bones. Um, so in a way, this is kind of like a short film that's gotten stretched out to feature length, and I think it does have enough to it that it could make a great feature film. But yeah, I kind of feel like the ending lets it down a little bit. It doesn't quite go where you want it to go.
Mom.
Doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. There's no big twists. Um, but apparently, she is a fan of Asian horror, and she's also a fan of The Shining and also
All these
Cronenberg's.
people are
And
fans of The Shining. Everyone.
yeah,
The
yeah, oh yeah,
Babadook person, the filmmaker, they're all like, the Shining, The Shining, The Shining.
yeah,
I don't know. The Shining had a plot though.
it did. She also loves Videodrome, Cronenberg's film, which is one of my favorite films as well. So these all influenced her, but um, yeah, I wouldn't put it in the category with those though.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you're kind of almost there in a way when the grandmother seems to sort of go crazy and almost turn into a monster, and she's attacking them. But then it kind of pulls back and turns into that kind of weird ending where they just
Yeah.
accept it or
I
something.
mean, you could do this story and make it work where it's just like maybe there is a monster in the house, right? And
Yeah,
it's sucking in the grandmother and they try to rescue her, but then she concedes to the monster and lets it take her,
yeah,
or something like that. Or like, I don't know, just figure out something where you can have a conclusion, but you've already sowed the seed so much of your subtext that it doesn't have to end weird. It's like all
yeah,
these scenes that you did leading up to it, It's like we're not dumb. We get what you're trying to achieve. We understand the, oh, she's eating her memories, she's burying her memories. Oh, the grandmother doesn't know what you're talking about. And oh, she gave you the ring, but now she forgot she gave you the ring and she's ripping it
Yeah,
off your finger. It's like there's so
yeah,
much things there that are subtle and not subtle and like knocking you over the head obvious. It's like you already made your point with the story you're trying to tell in terms
yeah,
of what's beneath the surface. It's okay to say something on the surface as well to complement that.
yeah, yeah. And again, is it just a straightforward metaphor, or is there some kind of evil force in this house?
It seems like a straightforward metaphor, dude. I was
I
looking for
know.
something there. I mean, that
Yeah,
was the whole point. It's like, all right, what is the daughter gonna find when she's like looking in this
yeah,
like dark version of the house? Because it seems like where she is right now is still the regular house, but just like a dark universe version, is what I'm
yeah.
assuming.
I
Um,
guess so. Yeah,
like a mental space, a dark space at the maybe
yeah,
the mentally the grandmother's occupying,
yeah,
because the house is only so big. I know horror
yeah,
movies like to do that where they show you a tiny house, but then when they start showing the insides, there are like 20 different rooms,
yeah,
huge and large. Just like, wait a minute, the outside of the house doesn't really add up to like how many rooms are in the inside of the house.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, it's interesting too. Like, when they first come to the house, the grandmother's missing. Nobody knows where she is, and then she just kind of shows up. She comes
mhm.
back. She doesn't seem to know that she was even missing. She just certainly isn't willing to talk about it. I found myself wondering, like, are we supposed to think that she was maybe inside this closet universe where the granddaughter kind of gets stuck? Is that what we're supposed to think? I kept expecting to find out that's what had
That's what I was
happened.
thinking when I first saw it, where I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, like now we're gonna get some answers.
yeah,
Boy, was I wrong.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. They don't ever give us those answers, but it does have some nice atmosphere and a sense of dread, particularly during this sequence. For me, I found this. I kept thinking, what horrible things are going to happen to this granddaughter? But
Another thing the movie lacks a little bit too is any kind of character development.
yeah,
It seems like if you're going to spend so little time developing a plot, you develop the characters a little bit more. Like, I don't know, like I assumed at some point one of these women would be the main character
yeah,
and we'd find out something about them. But
yeah,
we don't really find out anything about them. I like my first time watching this, I was like, all right, at some point they're gonna pick one of these women as the lead,
yeah,
and we're gonna get more backstory. Either it's gonna be about the grandmother slash mother, and we're gonna find out her backstory and what led to this and what's really going on, or it's gonna be the mother because hey, she's the person I recognize. She's probably the bigger star. Maybe it'll be
yeah,
about her. Then I was like, you know what? This is a horror movie. It's gonna be about the young blonde, and we're gonna find
yeah,
out about her personal life. Maybe there's an ex-boyfriend she's running from. It's like, why is
yeah,
someone who I assumed was in her mid-20s willing to live on this, little outskirts of the city, um, taking care of her grandmother? Like, what is she
yeah,
running from? Like, is there a boyfriend in the picture? Is there like something? Does she in financial debt? Is there like something that makes her interesting gonna come up? But it never does.
no, no, you're right. They don't go as deep as you would expect them to. They kind of establish them as interesting characters who could go deep, but then they don't really go deep.
No.
They sort
They
of pull
spend
pull
they
back.
spend all the running time of the movie developing this mystery that goes nowhere.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna
yeah,
go the Terrence Malick route or you're gonna go that type of direction, then at least spend time with the characters. Don't spend
yeah,
time developing a mystery that you're never gonna solve.
yeah, yeah. And I guess for my money, I would suggest that it's Emily Mortimer, the mother, who is our main character, because she kind of has to be, because she's the one who has the most responsibility in a way. You know, this is her mother, and meanwhile she's got a daughter who seems to be troubled in some way. She's not going to school, she's working a dead-end job by choice. So it seems like she's kind of the 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 woman who's the most kind of put upon, or she's got the most concerns, the most responsibilities. But yeah, you kind of expect these relationships to in some way either get better, you know, they,
Yeah, something. Yeah. Get better.
yeah, they need to deal with some of these issues, but yeah, they seem to kind of pull back a bit from that.
Yeah, because they initially they implied that like this daughter, this blonde, doesn't have her life together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what throughout the course of the movie is consistent with her not having her life together? Like she doesn't act irresponsibly from the scenes
No.
we actually see. It's just the short scene where there's, all right, here's a little backstory. Here's a quick scene with some backstory. Aside from
Yeah.
that, like nothing about that backstory is consistent with the character. She seems very responsible, very caring, curious to know what's going on. There's no negative traits we see from her at all.
No, no, we just hear about the fact that she's making these bad choices, working a dead-end job instead of getting a degree or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, she's got some funny priorities perhaps, but, and it could be that she's, you know, she's going to take this, whatever you want to call it, job, living with her grandmother, to avoid responsibility and to avoid having to do anything for real. So I have another trivia question I could ask you that kind of relates here to mother and daughter.
Okay.
Although they portray mother and daughter in the movie,
They're not that
Emily,
far apart in age.
yeah, I mean, Emily Mortimer and Bella Heathcote are not as far apart as you might expect. Do you have any guesses as to how far apart they are?
Well, I knew you were going there because I initially thought she was in her mid-20s, and the minute we established she's like, what did we say, 32 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I realized that the age gap couldn't be that big.
Yeah.
I would say the mother character looks like she's in her 40s, honestly, mid-40s.
Yeah.
So I'd say the most there's 20 years between them. 15 to 20 years between them.
Okay.
You want me to
Well,
guess a number you're saying specifically?
Yeah, well, you are absolutely right. It is between 15 and 20. Do you have a more specific guess, or do you want to just hear the answer?
17.
Very close, very close.
Well, there's only
answer-
5 numbers, so of course I'm going to be close. There's only
Yeah,
4
no.
other numbers there could be. Go ahead.
Well, it's true. The answer is 16. 16
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
So that was as close as you could be, because it's between 15 and 20. So yeah, so only 16 years apart. Although that is technically old enough that she could be her mother at age 16.
Yeah, but the movie, like we both established, kind of implied that this daughter was in her mid-20s.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, another interesting thing, if you're not tired of trivia, this Bella Heathcote is in another sort of
The
modern...
thing I like about trivia is that, like, there's a beginning, middle, and an end to trivia. You ask the question, I guess the answer, and then we get the real answer.
That's
There
right.
is no,
Yeah.
all right, well, yeah, that's a good guess. All right, moving on to the next question. You know, it's a resolution to trivia.
That's like punishing trivia, where you don't get the answer, you just guess and you're wrong, and that's it. We move on.
Or I guess, and I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I just get to guess.
That'd be even worse. Yeah. So Bella Heathcote, she's also in another sort of modern horror film, which got a lot of buzz. You know, it's called The Neon Demon. I don't know if you've seen that one, The Neon Demon. She plays a model.
Is that the one with that director who did like Drive or something? That artsy director?
Good question. It is a director, I think, who has done some other things. It is Nicholas Winding
Yeah, Riff or
Ref.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Refn. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
yeah. I like his
So
work. I haven't seen Neon Demon,
yeah,
but I like his work.
yeah. I believe I did see it, and I think I liked it. But it did have a mixed reaction from critics,
This is
and
why I knew the movie was going nowhere. It's just like, okay, they're running from her, but like, all right, what's going on with her though? I knew the movie wasn't
yeah,
going to end like this, where it's just like they went to rescue her, they saw some weird shit, and now they're just going to leave her body there. I'm like,
yes,
nothing's making sense about this. This is why I knew it was going to have a weird ending. I didn't know how
yeah,
weird the ending was going to be, but I knew it was
yeah,
like, this just doesn't add up. Like, nothing about this
yes,
makes sense.
yeah,
You were
yeah.
just
You're
running
right.
from her. Why are you thinking about going back to her? Then why did you run from
Yeah,
her in the first place? You know?
yes. Well, you could ask the question, why are you running from this old lady? Like you should be able to overpower her, you know. But yeah, I found this a little odd. She's going back in. And so, what is the point? Is she going to try and destroy the old lady? Is she going to sacrifice herself in some way? What is she going to do here?
Yeah. You know what? You made an even better point than I did. Why are you running from an old lady? Like
Yeah.
they're literally breaking down walls to escape her. And when
Yes.
literally like 5 minutes ago when she was walking, she was breaking her own leg by walking. How weak she
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. So, very quickly here, just to finish this very important trivia,
Please.
um, Bella Heathcote was in The Neon Demon. She plays a model who gets humiliated by a casting director.
Mm.
And the casting director is played by a guy named Alessandro Nivola.
Mm.
Do you have any idea who that is and what his relation is to someone else involved in this movie here?
Uh,
It's a
so
complicated
Neon Demon
question,
was
I
made
know.
before this or after this? Can I get that hint?
Yeah, The Neon Demon was made in 2016, so 4 years
Okay.
before this.
So the casting director has a relation to this movie, you're saying? The actor that played the casting director in the movie has a relation to this movie.
Yeah, he has a relation to one of the people involved in this movie.
Okay. So I haven't seen him, so I don't know his age range. But if that movie was made before this, maybe his participation had something to do with that actress being cast in this movie as well. So he's not a real casting director, so it couldn't be that he casted her. It could be that he is ended up becoming a relationship with her and was her boyfriend. But then how does that relate him to this movie? So
He has a relationship to one of the
maybe
other
maybe
people.
he's the boyfriend of the mother character here.
Well, you're very close. You're as close as you can be.
Mm.
He's actually the real life husband of Emily Mortimer.
Oh, okay.
So just an interesting kind of odd coincidence.
Yeah. Small world, man. Small world.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, the minute I saw
yeah.
this, I'm like, what kind of artsy fartsy shit am I watching?
What is this now? She's like,
She's kissing her. It's like, dude,
yeah,
she's gross. You're literally peeling her body away.
yeah. And why are you doing that? Why are you peeling away skin and hair? But I
Yeah.
guess it's all some kind of metaphor, getting down to the
The
truth
whole
or
movie's a
something.
goddamn metaphor.
Yeah. But I would not be doing that though. It's like in movies, like you see this all the time, where people reach into their own mouth and they pull out one of their teeth.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? If you've got a tooth that's loose, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come out. It can actually
You could
heal,
try to
like,
strengthen it, right? Save
yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah. But why are you reaching in? And it often looks like they're using a lot of effort and they pull this tooth out. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that?
And you know when they pull it out, the teeth always looks perfectly fine. If a tooth's
Yes.
coming out, it's probably going to be broken or rotten or something's bad with it. You don't pull out a
Yeah.
perfectly good tooth, you know? The tooth is
No,
always
no.
perfect when they pull it out.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of what I thought of here. Is like, why are you peeling off her skin? You know, she may need that. Like,
That's
why are you
weird, but the tonal shift is weird. You were just running
Yes.
scared and freaked out by this person. Now she looks as freaky as she's ever looked by far, and you're
Oh, yes.
kissing and caressing her.
Yes.
And
Well,
why
this
is
is
she
where
suddenly not violent anymore?
yeah.
Like, why are you so docile now? Before you were just like trying to like capture them and like attack them.
Yeah.
Now you're docile and
Yeah.
all meek and I don't know. It's just the tonal
Yeah.
shift is so weird. And the daughter's
Yeah.
back.
Well, I guess
Wasn't
it's
she just trying to kill you, daughter? Like, what's going
yeah.
on?
Yeah. And again, it's I guess if she's got some kind of dementia or something, it's causing her to be violent in one moment and then she's
But they
not in
didn't
the next
solve
moment.
that. They didn't figure that out.
No,
They didn't say this is the reason she acted that way.
no, no. And I guess this is just coming down to that acceptance. I accept that my mother has turned into this creature, whatever this is.
And I'm gonna love her anyway. But
I'm
there's a
going to love
better way to
her.
tell that story. You got to be
Yeah,
more clever, you know?
yeah. Um, and of
I was
course,
hoping
there's
this was
one.
going to turn into a Serbian film
Oh,
where the daughter would lay at the back
oh,
and they would just
oh
pull the
dear.
trigger and kill all three of them. I was like,
Wow.
please be a Serbian film. That would make everything worth it if they just did the
Yeah,
triple suicide.
yeah, yeah. And I guess this is where we get one more layer now to the point or the concept or
This is, you know,
whatever.
I hate those shock endings in horror movies where it's just like, all right, Freddy's dead, Jason's dead, movie's over. 2 seconds before
Yeah,
the end, they come back to life. The mother
yes.
should have just been like, "Rah," or just killed them. Just like,
Yeah,
end it right here.
yeah, yeah. But now here it is. Here's the reveal, I
Yeah.
guess, of
It's
the mother.
heredity. Now it's
Yes,
passing.
yes, the mother
Yeah.
may go down the same path, which is very realistic, right? It's if your parents have a certain disease, there's a good chance you
But you
will
know what?
too.
That could have given you the window to make a better movie. It's like, all right, like they kill the mother, they defeat the mother slash grandmother, and it's like, all right, we got rid of it. We killed it. We killed the
Yes,
Alzheimer's. We killed the monster. We killed whatever. And then
yeah,
after they defeated it, then the mother has some of it on her. And you're just like, oh shit, we
yes,
didn't kill it. This isn't
yeah,
something that just goes away.
yeah. Well, I guess too, I realized it reminded me of things like the House of Usher, the fall of the House of Usher, where it's like a family curse, it's something that's been passed down and there is something horrifying about that if you know that your family's cursed and you're all going to get this horrible disease or you're all going to go crazy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There is horror in that. It's certainly not a new idea because Edgar Allan Poe was writing about it back in the 1800s. So
Yeah.
this is maybe just the latest version of that.
Again, shot well, acted well, good visually, nice composition. It just could have used a better script.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately
I don't know
I
what.
liked it.
I mean, ultimately, this is the second time I've watched it. What's
Yeah.
the fucking point of this movie, man? Like, I don't know, man.
Well,
What am I
yeah,
supposed to take from this movie? Any point the movie made, like, they knocked you over the head with it so early on in the movie. Oh, I didn't give you that ring, but yeah, you gave me the ring. What's the matter,
yeah,
Grandma? You have Alzheimer's? It's like, I
yeah,
got your point, movie. You're not that clever. Like, move on. Like, tell me something else.
yeah. Well, it is very, very simple, and not any big twists in the end. I think ultimately I liked it a bit better than you did, but I think we agree that it doesn't quite add up to anything great in the end. It doesn't quite go where we want it to go in some way.
Yeah, for me, the things I didn't like about it, obviously, is the script. Two, it wasn't as clever as it was trying to be. It's because you kind of get where it's going. Oh, like why doesn't whatever, this Down syndrome boy come over to the house anymore? Oh well,
Yeah,
they were playing hide and seek and then she locked him in or whatever. It's like, all right. Oh, so she has
yeah,
Alzheimer's. Okay, great. Oh, why with the ring? Oh, she has Alzheimer's. Okay, great. Oh, she's literally eating the memories. I get it. She has fucking Alzheimer's. Great, let's move on. It's like
yeah,
it's like I
yeah,
don't know. It's like it keeps making the same point. Like, oh, I'm so clever. You don't understand. Yeah, I don't know why I'm giving the filmmaker that accent, but yeah, it's just like the movie kind
yes,
of makes its point and doesn't move on. It just stays there for 90 minutes. Like it's like
yeah,
you're at a party and this person keeps telling you this thing. It's like, all right, dude. Like, can I move along and talk to someone else? Like, we've been talking about the same point for 90 minutes. It's like
yeah.
I don't know.
I I guess it would be like if in The Exorcist it turned out that she just did have a brain tumor or something, and there was no demonic possession. You know,
Mhm.
that's kind of what this is like, in a way.
Yeah. But if they kept talking about the brain tumor for 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, you
and
know,
if none of the characters ever developed at all, like we didn't know like the priest lost his mother and that affected him, and we
yeah,
didn't know like the backstories of it, like the
yeah,
mother is a single mother and she's an actress trying to struggle through and dealing with her daughter and being overwhelmed. And we didn't know the backstory of the priest who was dealing with the same demonic being earlier on in another country. And now there's
yeah,
this long journey where they're finally coming to a conclusion. Like all those great backstories just went out the window just so we can get more focus on. Oh, did you really know that this is a brain tumor, not like an exorcist? Like, yeah,
yeah. Well, I think we can agree that this movie is not in the same class as The Exorcist. Definitely not.
90 minutes
But
later, that's our conclusion.
that's the conclusion. But I still liked it well enough.
Here we go. Here comes all the production companies that put this
Oh
thing
yes,
together.
yeah. I think it's worth a watch for sure. I don't know that I would need to watch it many, many times. This may have been enough, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't need to see this a second time. Again, it's not a bad movie. If you like artistic movies, visual movies, it's not a bad movie to watch. I guess because we're analyzing it, I have to harp on the fact that it goes nowhere. But yeah, there you go, like 20 different production icons there putting this thing
Yeah.
together. So all right, for Angus Cohn, that's the Sean Weathers. You've been watching Screened.